Welcome to A Veteran Story. And today I have a very special guest, Richard Madanjian. How did I do with that?
Madanjian. You put an extra N in.
I keep trying to do that. Madanjian.
Yeah, right.
Petty Officer, First Class, United States Navy, and specifically a tin can sailor. What is a tin can sailor to the people in our audience who don't know what a tin can is?
Well, Tin Can Sailors an organization made up of people during previous to World War I and II, about that time. I don't think they call them tin cans anymore, because a tin can was the nickname of a destroyer because they lacked armament, no protection whatsoever. They depended primarily on their maneuverability and their speed.
And you're a proud veteran of the tin can.
Yes, and now that I look back, it wasn't bad at all, except when some of the action started.
Well, life on a tin can during World War II in action, there is no rear echelon. There is no foxholes. Everybody was on the front lines. Is that a fair statement?
That's right, yeah, that's right. Just, if you get hit, you get hit, that's all.
Well, let's talk about your background, Mr. Madanjian. You were born February 7th, 1921 in Newton, Massachusetts. You brought into this world by a midwife. There was no doctors around. There was just whoever happened to be in the neighborhood was
right. Well, the doctor came after I was born to make it official, I guess. He put out the birth certificates and what have you.
But if I'm doing my math correctly, that makes you 90 years young.
That's right.
Yeah, and I tell you, I'll take your contract. I want to be just as spry and as bright and as, hopefully if I get there too.
You'll get there, but thank you very much.
Well, your mother's was Annie.
Annie.
Your dad, Jacob.
Right. You
had 5 sisters, a brother who died in 8 months old of pneumonia. And your parents, they immigrated from Turkey.
That's right.
And this was just after, a little after the first genocide, they immigrated to the United States.
Right.
And they located in Newton Upper Falls, Massachusetts,
right,
where there was work available,
right,
factories.
Right.
And your dad just took a job in a foundry and worked for a number of years, raising a family, and then eventually he worked in a coal yard. But he raised 6 children.
Right.
Your mother, Annie, stayed at home while taking care of 6 children.
Right.
That was a full-time job. And you went through the Newton Public Schools, and you graduating what year?
I graduated from high school in 1938.
And you then went to work in a mill, and at nights you wanted to become an electrician. You liked just how did this interest develop?
I don't know how it developed. I think I was influenced by a couple of men in my neighborhood who worked as electricians, and it sort of took my interest. It fascinated me, and I just what they could do. And I said, geez, I'd like to be like that too.
So for whatever reason, it captured your imagination. Right. You just wanted to pursue it.
Yeah, right.
Well, you did. And you spent a lot of time going to schools and working as well. But then on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, you were actually working overtime.
Right.
And you heard the news about Pearl Harbor.
Right.
What was your thoughts at that time?
Well, I didn't know. I didn't realize what it meant at the time. I really didn't realize that we were going to be in a total war and it was going to be a severe as it was. I had no idea what was the future held.
Did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
No, I had no idea where Pearl Harbor was.
You would get a lot of company of that. Well, as time goes by and you join the Navy.
Right.
And boot camp is where?
Newport, Rhode Island.
And there your electronics background came into play. And how did you get, what happened after boot camp?
Well, I was assigned to a destroyer, USS Glenn, DD-620. DD is a symbol for destroyer. Mm-hmm. And he was being built at Federal Shipyard and Dry Dock Company in Kearney, New Jersey. And when I got through with boot camp, I went over there and the ship wasn't even finished yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, the destroyer, that class, was a complement of 276.
I would say thereabouts, maybe a few more. I don't really know. But
well, it's not a big ship. I mean, it's 348 feet long and a beam or wide of 36 feet. So it's a relatively small.
Well, these destroyers were designed back in the 30s, and they kept building those in the early years of the war until they came up with a better design of larger destroyers, which they did eventually have several classes of destroyers now.
Richard, is it fair to say that its primary duty was to protect the capital ships and anti-submarine?
Yeah, right. Our duty was mostly anti-submarine convoy duty at first, but we did do later on. We did some shore bombardments and things of that nature.
Primary weaponry was torpedoes.
Yeah.
Which you had 6 torpedoes.
Yeah,
six
tubes.
Right. And of course, depth charges and 6-inch can, 6-inch.
5-inch 38, 5-inch 38, 5-inch and 38. I mean, I don't know what 5-inch 38 caliber. I guess that means.
Well, after you go through this training and the ship becomes commissioned, and it was commissioned in October of 1942, you go on a shakedown cruise. Where was that at?
Up in Casco Bay in Portland, Maine, in that area.
Okay, so now you passed everything. And what is your duty aboard ship?
My duty was to take care of the not only repairs, electrical repairs, but also we used to put the generator online and take care of the power distribution.
Mm-hmm. So there you were your duty time was how many hours on and off?
Well, I think it was normally it was like 4 hours on duty and 8 hours off, and occasionally when things got then with 4 and 4. But when we had enough men, we had enough people to do the thing. Otherwise, it was just 4 and 4.
Mm-hmm. 4 hours on, 4 hours off.
Yeah, right.
Now, your first cruise was down along the eastern coast of the United States,
right?
Because there were submarines, German submarines, actually torpedoing oil tankers, and your first engagement when you dropped depth charges. Don't you tell us that?
Well, that was in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico. We made a submarine contact with our sonar. We made a contact anyway, thinking it was submarines, but it wasn't submarines. It was a school of fish, and we killed about 1 million red snappers, and so we made a big deal out of it. So one of the fellows on the ship made a little campaign ribbon and put a fish on it and gave it to the captain, which he took in good humor, and and we had a big kick out of her.
Well, that was your first call to action, was
Yeah,
against the
that
school
was our
affairs.
first action.
But then the real stuff happens.
Right.
And in November of 1942, you were escorting oil tankers to French West Africa, which is what now?
Senegal.
Senegal. And you were. Why Senegal or West? Why? Because we had landed in Morocco.
Right. Well, I thought because the Germans had so many submarines that were active and they were good at it, that they didn't want to send the ships up to the oil tankers up to directly to Casablanca or North Africa, because they wanted to ship it overland. And another reason was there were some French capital ships tied up in Dakar at that time. It was French West Africa. And they were afraid that it might get into German hands. But so we went there for two reasons. One to escort the tankers over there, another to see that the ships were not taken over by the Germans.
The Vichy French.
Yeah, the Vichy French, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you finally get to Morocco, you actually involved in the invasion of Sicily.
Well, that came later, yes.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that. That's where that was in July of 1943. You were escorting ships to Sicily and firing into the.
Yeah, they were landing at the 1st Division of the Army was landing in Sicily, which was then occupied. The Germans occupied it, and the Italians weren't that interested in fighting a war. I guess they just stayed back, but they were there, and we had to. So we'd bombard the bases in Sicily. It's mainly the southern. Our duty was the southern part of Sicily, which was Gela, G-E-L-A, Sicily, and we had a rough time there. The German dive bombers, they were very good at it because they had a lot of practice, and they would just come down and just let go of their strafing and bombing the ships that were there, regardless of who they were. And one of our ships, our sister ships, the USS Maddox, that was DD-222, which is a squadron, got sunk down. They went down in minutes. Right, I saw it go down. It just felt bad. I don't think many got off the ship even. So, and then from there, that's it.
Well, your ship actually got hit.
Oh yeah, we were strafed and bombed also, but we never got any direct hits. We were strafed. And I remember being up on deck when the bullets or whatever they have, the shells were coming down and bouncing off the deck. And
But you could see the aircraft coming at you.
oh yeah, you could see them aircraft and they.
But you're roughly just turned 21. How does a 21-year-old? What's going through your mind?
Really, you're scared, but you don't want to show anybody you're scared because everybody else is scared. So you try to show that you're macho, I guess. Anyway, that it was good. The people up on the bridge got hit by shrapnel. We took some guys off that were wounded, but I don't think we got a direct hit with the bomb. We just were near the explosions near the bridge. We like, although when they were strafing us, they were pretty close to us. When we were up on deck, we were very scary. So we had to jump into one of the compartments that was on deck for protection.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, the ship has to go back to the United States for U.S. for repairs and such.
Yeah, those.
And when you went back, they actually sent you to Syracuse, New York, at GE,
Yeah, right.
to learn this new electronics that were the destroyers were going all electric.
Well, this was they were just starting to build these destroyer escorts, smaller than the destroyer, and they were all electric drive, big synchronous motors with big turbines and all that. But so they had to send some of the, not only from my ship, but other ships, mostly guys who were on destroyers before, were up there. Quite a class.
Mhm.
And we would go up there, and the engineers up there that taught us, they were very good at teaching. They were very patient with us, and they did a good job teaching us. We were-
Well, then you complete that and you go down to Hingham, Quincy, Massachusetts, to Bethlehem Steel, where the USS Barr, B-A-R-R, is ready for you to come aboard.
Right.
And that happened in February of 1944, where you joined a group that was on its way to Casablanca.
Right.
And so you get to Casablanca, and you have a second action, and describe that. We have a picture of you when you were in Casablanca with 3 of your friends.
Yeah.
And one of them died 6 days later.
Right.
And his name was?
Michael Gorchika.
Mhm.
He was from Pennsylvania. Nice young fella, which we all were, really, when you come down there. But anyway, he was on the ship when he was on the after steering engine room. And
Now
that's
this is where, just out of Casablanca?
Yeah, we were just out. We went out there. We knew that there were submarines out there, and we were out there when we had the aircraft carriers, converted carrier. It was called the USS Block Island CV-21. And we were out there, and the Germans were very active, and they were very good at submarine warfare. And they hit the carrier, and it was sinking. And we went after the submarine. Submarines fired at us, and they had acoustical torpedoes that would go for the sound of the propeller. And that's where we got hit in the after steering engine room. And that's where Mike and a couple of my other comrades in the electrical gang were there. The 3 electricians got killed down in the after steering engine room. Oh, they didn't get killed. We never found them. That was the end of them, that's all.
There are roughly 30 losses out of a small complement.
Yeah.
So you knew everybody, and they were all personal losses.
Yeah, right, yeah. That was the trouble. That's one of the sad parts about, military services. I suppose like any other job, you make friends with people, and then you either get transferred or something. They get killed, and that's the end of it. And it's sad, because you had so many good friends.
Well, life aboard a small ship, you become a team.
Oh yeah, we were definitely. And everybody on the ships were good. The enlisted men and the officers, we all got along fine.
Well, you then come back after this episode. The ship gets hit. You come back to the United States for more repairs, and later into the war, you actually now get shipped out to the Pacific.
Right.
Again, you're on. This time you had a different kind of ship, which was a.
They call it. It's the same ship, but it was called APD-39. It was the same ship, USS Barr. It was converted. And I don't know what APD stands for. Some people said all-purpose destroyer or auxiliary personnel destroyer, something like that. But I never did know the reason for the initials. But it was the same thing. They did the same thing, except that we used to carry other personnel. In this case, we carried underwater demolition teams, and known as frogmen. And that's what we were trained to do. Go in there, and they would go into the water with explosives and blow up any obstacles that would prevent the landing at one of the targets.
I think they're called SEALs now.
Yeah, maybe they are called SEALs.
So this was in the different islands that you.
Yeah. we were scheduled to go to the different islands. There again, I got transferred again to another ship.
And that was a
PC boat, PC 1082,
And that was
patrol
a-
craft.
patrol craft, which is a smaller,
Smaller version of all the ships.
and its primary duty was,
Actually, it was equipped to do submarine warfare. You know, they had what they call hedgehogs as well as depth charges. And although we never encountered any, while I was on it anyway, and we used to escort submarines, our submarines out, look at dock, and then and just patrol around. That's all. Rescue. We did pick up a few pilots
off of,
off Iwo Jima and some of the other islands, I guess, where they had landing strips. They run out of gas. I guess they'd have to ditch. So it was good. We did save a few lives.
and you realize how vast the Pacific is.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, really big.
Well, then comes August and the dropping of the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then later on you're aboard this patrol craft and you heard that the war was over.
Right.
And what happened?
Well, the guys, most of the guys, they were very worried behind, but they were all excited over it, and then they in the officers, we had about 3-4 officers on the ship, and they wore their hats and they climbed the mast and everything else and waved flags and everything else. But it was good. They enjoyed it.
But your war was over,
Yeah.
and it's now time to come back, which your ship eventually came back to the West Coast and San Diego and Los Angeles, and
Yeah.
you trained back to
Boston.
and finally were discharged at
The Fargo building, Summer Street in Boston.
and you get home just before Christmas
Yeah, right, yeah.
of 1945.
Yeah.
And you have your family celebration
Oh, yeah.
and your
Very.
discharge, and well, now you go back to your chosen profession, which was being an electrician. You were,
Right.
by this time you kind of knew you were starting to get pretty good at this.
Oh yeah. I had a lot of experience at it by that time.
And you went to work for who?
Well, I went to work down the shipyard.
The Boston Navy Yard?
Yeah, Boston Navy Yard, and then also I think I was. That came later, but I was an instructor too. Yeah, but that came later.
But you worked a lot of years in the Boston Navy
Oh
Yard.
yeah, right, yeah.
And then you finally retired in 1970.
70, yeah.
But now that's enough. But you decided to go back to work,
Oh yeah.
and this time for who?
I went to work at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT.
MIT, right. And you worked there for a number of years, and
I worked there for 15 years as an electrician. It was good, nice people there. And then I retired from there too. So, and I've been sort of trying to keep out of mischief since then.
but during this time in 1953, you weren't too much out of service. You marry who?
Sona Barmaken,
And-
she was my sweetheart.
And you and Sona have
3 children,
their names.
and we got 8 grandchildren. And unfortunately, she passed away on Christmas Day of 2003.
Well, this is quite a quite a story and life aboard a tin can
Yeah,
in during World War II.
yeah. One thing about tin, you were never dry. You were always wet. There was always spray coming up.
Well, you must have been in rough seas. And
Oh, yeah.
What is life like on a destroyer on rough seas?
Well, you just try to keep from falling overboard mostly. That's the whole thing. You stay off the main deck if you have to. But during a bad time, the seamen would put up these holding ropes, where they put across, so If you go from forward to aft, you'd hold on to something without being swept over. Because you could be swept over the side very easily.
Well, it happened.
Yeah.
You know, that was, you know, when you're in the open sea, you have to,
Yeah.
you know, there's not a, you know, you're there.
Right, yeah. Now, one of the toughest jobs was taking fuel on at sea from either another ship or a tanker. That was kind of rough to do. But the fellas in the deck crew knew what they were doing. They were very good at it. And we had some good officers. They knew their business.
And you are now a proud member of the Tin Can Sailors Association?
Yeah, we have an organization based in it used to be in Fall River, but now they're based in Somerset, and called Tin Can Sailors. And we have quite a membership, because you got to remember how many destroyers there were and how many men there were on it. And we have our yearly get-together for the region, and we have one annually. Now, I haven't been to an annual one for quite a few years, but it was good. We used to enjoy going, my wife and I, because it gave us a chance to travel a little bit. You know, we used to go to Vegas, we went to Orlando, Florida. We'd go places where Washington, D.C. It was good.
Well, there is a camaraderie of having shared a time on a destroyer, which is a unique service.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. No, we're very close. Very close. You know, we were more or less stayed with our own group, like, you know, as far as the engineering. I was engineering. We had the gunnery crew and the deck crew and all that, but we were all very friendly with each other.
You were Tin Can Sailors.
Yeah.
Well, this has been truly a wonderful time I've shared with you. I'm honored to have you here and to talk about your service and your life.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So I would like you to take a minute and dedicate this
Naturally.
story to anybody who you'd like.
Oh, naturally,
The floor is
I'll
yours.
dedicate it to my wife, my dear wife, which I miss terribly. You know, dedicate to her. That's it.